So far on Fat Bike Friday, we've watched me go down a relatively mild downhill trail, and we've watched how fat bikes do climbing technical stuff. Today, we're going to look at whether fat bikes can handle serious downhill trails. To do that, I went back to Ute Valley in Colorado Springs and worked my way up to the first part of the trails today, Nachos. Now, I'm only an intermediate rider and I haven't mastered this trail on my pivot, but we're going to see how the fat bike compares overall. The first thing I ran into trouble-wise was with my brakes. You're going to have really good brakes on a downhill trail like this, and the ones on my fatty just aren't quite up to par for a heavy bike on a trail like this. Looking back, I probably could have taken that drop without any problems. Here again, I didn't trust my brakes enough to take this feature the way it needs to be taken with a little bit of momentum. The rest of the trail is pretty tame and the fat bike handles it well, including the water bar drops that come up toward the end of the trail. Interestingly, I turned in my fourth fastest time at 2:56 on this trail using the fat bike. We'll have to see if that holds up on other trails. Next, I took the fat bike to Almond Butter. That's a purpose-built downhill-only trail put in at the top end of Ute Valley. It's pretty flowy, but it's got a couple of drops in it. Nothing like the Rattle Rocks trail that is off to the right as you go down this hill. Again, on my pivot, I have not yet mastered this.
There you go. Try not to die.
The first thing I noticed on this trail is that it's really hard to get the fat bike up to speed enough to take these little jumps that are in here. It's just too much grip.
Start at segment 5, your inner use, your fastest time 7 minutes and 50 seconds.
With only 100 mil travel on my fork, this first drop gave me a little bit of trouble and could have sent me over the bars if I hadn't been careful.
Rough on the fork. Almost on me.
This next drop is one I haven't managed on my pivot yet, and I didn't expect to handle it on the fat bike. One weakness of most fat bikes is that they have 26-inch tires, and even with the extra squish, they will rub your bottom bracket on drops like that. My results on Almond Butter were a little less encouraging. It took 305 to go down, and that's 26 out of 41 tries that I've done on this trail, so it didn't do so well here. To break the tie, I took the fatty to Cheyenne Mountain State Park and took it down a downhill trail called Talon. This is flowy and not technical, so it should be a slightly different result. Let's see.
Morning. Thank you guys.
What I said there was no side knobs. These big fat tires have no appreciable difference to the knobs on the sides, the shoulder knobs. So I need to be able to deflate my tires a bit and get better grip. But I got to get rid of tubes to do that, so that's a major limiting factor on downhill trails. The results here were not encouraging either, as I placed 7th out of the 8 times I've tried it. It's just not a good grip with the tires I have on it right now. Then I took it on Sundance, which is another flow trail, but it has some jumps and a few minor features in it. Because it had time to get speed, the fatty took that jump pretty well compared to the others. Another thing I noticed is that the high speeds on a downhill run tend to take their turns tight to one side or the other. If you turn to the right, it pulls you harder to the right because of the friction those fat tires will be. Same thing to the left.
Sorry about that. Thank you, folks. Have a good hike.
And on Sundance, I finished 6 out of 10, again in the bottom half of times on this trail. A fat bike isn't really made for downhill trails, But it does float over most bumps, and the big tires are loud enough people should hear you coming. Also, the 26-inch tires on most fat bikes make them a little more maneuverable, but that's really it where the pros end. The cons of going downhill on a fat bike, well, it starts with being slow. It's heavy and has a lot of friction, therefore it doesn't go very fast. The 26-inch wheels cause clearance issues, and they pull inward when you turn, and the large frame with wide pedals makes it hard to get through some narrow spaces. But the bottom line on this is fun. I'm not racing, I'm not a professional rider, so I measure a lot of success for a bike on whether or not it's fun, and the fat bike is definitely fun in a different way than other bikes on a downhill. I wouldn't want to ride it all the time, but for a change of pace, something a little more challenging sometimes, yeah, I think it's a good thing to do. There won't be a Fat Bike Friday for November and probably December, as I'll be getting hip surgery and won't be able to ride. I'll see you next year.